the beautiful vocals of the incomparable Destra Garcia, making sure that we remember the reason for the season, if you will, as it is Easter. And this morning we will be exploring the celebration, the faith, and the joy of the season with Vicar General Father Martin Sergiu as he joins us on Set On Now. Good morning and welcome.
Hi, good morning, Anchor.
I know that you made a very deliberate effort to make sure you pronounce that right. I appreciate it tremendously. But you're the star of the show because we are in the Easter season, and as much as we partake of the hot cross buns and all the bunny rabbits and Easter eggs, the season is about renewal and spreading that message. What are the core messages or concepts of Easter?
Well, I think that when people talk about Easter, they jump to the consequences or the corollaries, what flows from the doctrine. But I think it's important to remember the root of the doctrine because to some extent the social implications of the doctrine are what is more popular today. But the cornerstone of it, I think we can't talk about Easter unless we reaffirm what Christians believe.
Right.
And that is that a young man from Palestine went about preaching, and he indicated, not always very clearly, that he was God's son, that this is not only a human person, but a divine person. And the cost of his ministry, the cost of what he was trying to bring about, what he called the kingdom, that had a cost attached to it, and that cost was his life. But unlike most people or all others, his death did not end in death, and therefore he came back with what we call a glorified body, which we don't really fully know what it is all about, and areas of physics and so on, they are exploring things like that. But it was not a dead man who had come back to life, which has happened in many cultures, which is what we call resuscitation. Somebody is dead for a couple of minutes and so on,
Right.
or even a few hours, and the person comes back to life. But that is not what we preach. It's somebody who was in the tomb, dead for 3 days, and when he did come back, he came back with a glorified body, and also with evidence of his wounds. And that is really the source of our hope, because I can't think of a better example of why we should not give up, except what St. Paul says, death, where is your victory? Death, where is your sting? And since that sting has been taken away, it provides for us who call ourselves Christians to be embedded in that hope, that even if we die in a certain cause or ministry, that will be vindicated. It is not all in vain. It is a conduit of something much greater God has planned, not just for you and me, but for the entire cosmos.
The idea of hope is beautiful, but to a lot of people very fantastic. We would have heard even from a previous conversation, the realities that a lot of people face makes it very, very hard to see or feel hope or even have faith in things. What do you say to those persons, particularly in this time where we should be reflecting on exactly that?
Yes. I think sometimes hope is mixed up with optimism, and hope is not optimism. Hope is not looking on the brighter side of things simply, or you look at the glass and you say it's half full instead of being half empty. And also people like to think of hope as being like sunlight, like the light in this room and so on, that it has to be bright, things have to look totally transformed. But I don't think that is the correct way to look at hope. Hope is often a light shining in the dark, and that dark is not overpowered and cannot be overpowered, we think, because of the resurrection. So if we look at what is happening today with the trade war between the United States and China, and if it goes on to become a global trade war, then everybody is going to suffer. Things are going to get harder, most of all for the poor. What do you do in circumstances like that? And this is where hope comes in, which says that we have been through things like this before, because of our faith, and we will come through it again, as the saying says, and this too shall pass. So we must not think just because things are negative or things are dark and there are looming crises that hope does not have a part to play. In fact, that's exactly when it shows itself. And if we were to go back to the context of Jesus, there was no middle class. You had a few elite.
Right.
Most of the people were poor, and he gave them hope. And you give people hope by how you speak to them, how you treat them, make them feel valued, make them feel welcome. And there's a statement that people go where they feel welcome,
Right.
and they stay where they feel valued. And I think Jesus did that. And even that, when you cannot do much about his socioeconomic condition and so on, I think that is a sign of hope.
Beautifully put. And in that case, I would like you to, in your capacity, leave a message to the nation, if you will, as we get ready to go into the Easter season. Look straight into the camera so that we can have our official Easter greeting, if you will.
I would say let us stop the doleful lament. There are many things that we can be negative about, but I'm not talking about optimism, but rather to think of our historical memory or ancestral history and to see what they came through. And if they came through that, on their faith, I must add, their faith sustained them. And so our faith can be that source of strength and courage and also hope to see a future that we may not live to see sometimes, but certainly others will enjoy because of our hard work or sacrifice. And in the case of Christians, their faith in Jesus Christ.
Happy Easter, Father.
Same to you.
And thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Right.
Father Martin Sergiu, the Vicar General, giving us some insight on how we can look forward to celebrating and observing this Easter weekend. There's more in our morning show after these messages.